So I have been having some very strange dreams recently. Last night, I had a dream about Snow White, and I was walking down the street, and then I suddenly realised something, and then started doing some like really embarrassing, sexy dancing in front of this cafe. And she was like, "What are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself." And I was like, "Look, how I'm dancing." And I was like, because I felt like I was in slow motion, basically. I felt like I couldn't dance properly. I'm like, this is the fastest I can dance, and yet for some reason my arms are just doing this. And it's because of that I knew I was dreaming, and therefore I said, "Look, I'm dreaming. This in real life. If I was to dance my fastest, I'd be able to dance a lot faster than this, and therefore it doesn't matter what I do because I'm dreaming." And I told her that, and it was kind of really bizarre because it was just like, well, when I woke up, when I realized that I'm dreaming. That's usually the point that I start waking up. But yeah, I managed to get in some incredibly embarrassing dance moves before I did that, and it didn't matter because I was dreaming, so no one cared. But yeah, have you ever had these dreams? There's two types of dreams, main types: ones that you know you're dreaming, or ones you don't know you're dreaming. Sometimes you don't know you're dreaming, and then you start waking up and realizing you're dreaming. Then it's just a bizarre thing because you're just like, where am I? Why am I in this cafe? What street am I on? And although I didn't actually get as far as that, all I noticed, or I knew I was dreaming because I was, for some reason, I was not able to dance at a fast pace. My arms were kind of like in slow motion. And then I had a strange dream about Buffy the other day. I haven't had a Buffy dream in a very long time, but I know I was standing, was actually on top of some sort of building balcony, but there was a higher up balcony. So there was one balcony that was really high, really a skyscraper building that was really tall, and then one which was quite low, and then there was a ground floor which was like 10 floors down. So I was quite on a high place. But I had an argument with my sister. I don't know what about, but she stormed off, and then I was trying to find my mom. I didn't want to find her, but I ended up um, going to this cave and meeting Spike, and Spike wanted to kill me, and I was like blasing it. It's like, oh, you're Spike, you always say that. Um, and then and then he attacked me, but I realized it wasn't actually him who attacked me. It was some sort of sloth demon. So it was like a sloth. The demon's face was like a sloth, only it was like the shape of a body, and it kind of dragged me into a cave. But it was strange because as soon as it dragged me into a cage, I was Buffy, but I like kind of jumped out of my body, and I was like, oh crap, this loft demon's just dragged my body into this cave, and I'm now outside my body, and I need to go into the cave to go and grab my body. And it was kind of scary because it felt so real. It felt like I had literally just been dragged into a cave. So yeah, that was a very strange dream. And then the other dream before that, I can't remember anything. I blanked that one out because I felt like I was a completely different person, completely different life. No idea I was dreaming. What are dreams, and why do you have them? I don't know. Um, there is another issue that I want to talk about, but I know my sister's family are not going to be very happy about it. But it's the housing issue. This is the only thing that I give a shit about when it comes to government. But I don't think I can care about anything else because how a person, their home, their accommodation, where they stay, this is the most important thing of a person's life. Now, if you don't work, your life, if you don't work, or if you haven't been able to save up enough money, then I think it's very fair that you should have a shittier house. You should have, the more you pay, the more you get, or the better location you get. And therefore, the government have created this horrible housing scheme where if you just claim for benefits, say, I don't have a job, I can't work for this and that reason, I need housing benefit, I need somewhere long term stay. And what they do is they give you houses, and then once you've been in there for 1 or 2 years, they say, well, this is a life home. You can stay there for life. And then you just get this incredibly unfair market where some people are paying next to nothing providing they don't have a job. And some people are paying huge amounts for studio flats. If you look at how many people are working, have the rights to work, have the rights to live in England, and are living in a studio flat paying thousands of, eight, £900, this £1,000 a month. This is a very typical price for a tiny mincy studio flat, and yet there are other people who can pay nothing and get a 4 bedroomed house. I mean, I know my sister told me about this property out of confidentiality. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I have to talk about it. I'm God. I have to talk about this issue because that is incredibly unfair. I mean, okay, my sister's got a child in foster care now. The government is spending huge amounts of money, way too much money on foster care because, well, in my case, there's a sister who can look after the child, and therefore I feel like the social services have put the child in foster care just because they want to make money off the child, and they can't make money off the child if the child is living with me. So they've deliberately denied me and taken the child off. You know, if that's the truth, if someone else, if a third party got involved because I'm God and have prevented the child from living with me for that, I don't know. I'm angry either way, but I'm definitely far more angry over the idea that social services have deliberately said that I, being someone who's probably had 700 lives, have not capable of looking after one child. You know, if that's generally their feelings, then I think they're all fucked up in the head, and they're obviously clearly just out for money. And what they're doing with my sister and her child, you know, they're not showing any signs that they're going to try and help Sophie get her child back. It's we're keeping the child, we're doing all these assessments, we need to do this, we make the decisions. It's them taking control. It's like idiots taking control of something that they probably don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're just trying to make money out of the situation. I mean, that's kind of how I see it, because you know, Sophie has there's a partner that would like the child, and that partner is getting free housing. Why she's getting free housing, I don't know. I don't understand. She wrote me a very angry text message on Facebook saying how I shouldn't give my talk about this in public. But I think we need to talk about this in public. Why? Because if people are getting 3-bedroom houses for doing absolutely nothing, she's got an 8-year-old child and an 18-year-old child and a 21-year-old child, and I know it affects them. You know, they all enjoy living in a house that's being paid for by the government. You know, they all enjoy it. But so would the people that are paying huge amounts of money in a tiny studio flat. The reason why there's so many people suffering in a studio flat is because the government are helping people, but they're helping people by harming other people, because that's the whole thing with the housing market. If you give say you've got 600,000 houses that you can give free to people, if you give people 600,000 if you give 600,000 people free housing accommodation, all you're going to do is push up the market price so that 600,000 other people have to pay far higher rents, and they've got them suffering whilst living in tiny squatty little flats, other people living in large mansions. Why? Because they are just claiming benefits, and they're just living off benefits, and they can't even go to work, because if they go to work they're going to have to start paying rent, and because their rent is going to be far higher than the money that they're making in employment, there's no point in doing it. You know, I was on dole for a very, very long time. I tried to get a job. I could not get a job. I was living at home throughout all of that. My mum's a hoarder. Her house is her flat is a mess. And I was suffering because of not being able to afford rent. And the reason why I can't be able to afford rent is because the government are just saying, well, we do what we want, and we're going to choose who we give free housing to, and we're not going to give a shit about the people that want these houses that we're giving. So if you take all these houses and say, right, we're going to give it to all these people for free, all you're actually doing is taking the market away from other people who want that flat, other people who don't want to live with their hoarding mat, but also don't want to have to rely on the government. So that they're by helping people, they're actually harming people, and I don't think they see it. And I can't care about anything when it comes to the government, because this is the only issue that I think is the biggest, most important issue. You need to make housing arrangements fair. Okay, no, you shouldn't have people living here that are living here illegally and stuff. So if people are living here illegally, then it would be fine to make them pay twice as much. But there are plenty of people that do not want to rely on government funding, do not want to rely on the system to pay for their rent. They want to pay for their own rent. But by government helping lots and lots of people, they are pushing the prices up and making them pay a lot more. Now, there is good and bad to it. You know, if the government are giving lots and lots of free housing to a lot of people, that just means that there's a lot of people that can make money from the rent. If they're making money from the rent, they can pay high taxes. But the question is, are they actually paying taxes, or are they just, pretend like not declaring taxes on their rent? Is there a proper system that actually works out if people are paying the right amount of taxes? for rental properties. And then there's and of course, if the rental market goes up, the house market goes up. Hence, people can take out bigger loans, bigger mortgages. If people are taking out bigger loans and bigger mortgages, it's basically the banks that are ones that are gaining this. So the government gives a whole load of free housing to lots of people, and this housing goes towards paying the rent. The rent, of course, goes up in value, so they can charge more and more and more. And it's the people that it's the people that are renting the houses that are making the money. But if the only reason why they're renting the houses out is because they've got a massive mortgage, then technically they're just giving the rent money, or the money they're making from the rent, into the banks, and the banks are getting richer and richer, which I suppose isn't necessarily a bad thing, because there is they can make a lot of money from having, if house prices are worth 200,000, then people are going to take out small loans. Whereas if house prices are, 9 or a million or 2 million, then people are going to have to take out massive loans. And if people are taking out massive loans, it means that the banks can make higher interest. So I see why the system has ended up so corrupt. It's so the banks can make money out of selling extremely large loans. But yeah, why are you helping people by giving them free housing if the only real point of it is to help the banks make money off these investments that people are making? But it's just such a dodgy system, because the people that are suffering the most are the people who are earning. So say if you earn 20,000, you have to pay £4,000 of rent, £4,000 of of tax. But if your rent accommodation is £16,000 a year, and you're making £20,000 a year, well, technically you're literally making absolutely nothing, and there would be absolutely no point in working when you can just say, I'm not working, get free housing, get free everything. And it's unfair, and it shouldn't be allowed. And yeah, it brought up this issue. If Sophie and Marco, her partner, and Marco's ex and her new partner all live in a big house, this is a very good idea, because they can get a child out of foster care, which should be a high priority. I'm not convinced whatsoever that the social services are their goal is to try and take children out of foster care. No, I think their goal is to put children into foster care so they can make money out of them. That is what I generally believe, and that's what I've seen. Because if that wasn't the truth, then why would the child not be staying with me? Why would they have not appointed me as a someone who could take care of the child? Because they want to do it. They want to make money from it. And the reason why they're not setting up some sort of arrangement, if they were to get involved in this arrangement, there's a child who is in foster care, but the mother can't do it, but the mother can act as a sort of supervisor, providing there's someone else there. And well, if there's someone else like Marco's ex-partner, and because she needs to move house, she's renting somewhere that's like 3 bedroom, and they're saying that they want the house back, so she needs to move somewhere else. And she was thinking, well, instead of going into a 3 bedroom house elsewhere, go into a 4 bedroom house. And then Sophie and Marco and the new child plus the foster child could all live together. This is a very good idea, and I'm not against it in any way. But the social services should be the ones that are arranging it. We've got a child in foster care. We don't trust Sophie, but we do trust Marco, and we do trust Lucy to be a supervisor. Lucy wants to move out. Sophie is also happy. We'll arrange it, but they should try and do whatever they can to not take money from the government. And Sophie's got a house in Birmingham and a flat down in the south, and it makes so much sense that they forcibly rent out one of Sophie's flat and use that money to pay for her share of the rent of this bigger property. They all live together. Lucy getting benefits because she's acting as a supervisor to a young kid. Sophie having to pay the rent because technically the only reason why this arrangement is being arranged is because she can't do it. And Marco gets to go to work. That was the kind of a good arrangement, but this is something that social services should be arranging, because if Sophie's social services are not arranging it, all that's going to happen is Sophie's going to move into this new house. It's going to be all paid for by the government. A 4 bedroom house is going to be all paid for by the government, which is something I don't ever agree on, because this is the reason why rent is so expensive for everyone else. And then and then that she might not even get the child. Right now there's no guarantee that if Sophie moved into a bigger flat with Marco and Lucy and her new partner, um, if there's no guarantee basically that um, there's no guarantee that they're going to get Leo for a long time. It might be next March. Social services are being very, very slow. I don't trust them at all, and I think they're not caring. They're doing all these meetings and lots of things, and saying that you're not allowed. They're just by wasting time trying to delay as much, trying to delay the whole process. I think they also said that Sophie, the child, can't just move in with Sophie. There has to be a very, a process of bullshit. She can just move in. They've got their flat. Okay, one bedroom. It's really small, but it's not that small. There is technically enough space in the bedroom for a large bed, a cot, and a very small cot. I don't know what the right now. There's two cots in there. There's a big popper cot, and then there's like a very baby cot, a Moses basket. But Alicia's not going to be able to stay there for a long time. But yeah, I don't. Um, it's it's they're not trying to help. Basically, I don't believe social services for 1 second are trying to help. I think they're trying to come up with excuses as to why they shouldn't go ahead. Like if this was proper, if this was a proper social services system, they would say, well, you've got two cots, you've got a bed, you've got enough space. We'll give the child to you on weekends. We'll give this child that's in foster care on weekends. I mean, that's technically all that really needs to be done. I think if I was running social services, um, and I saw how well Marco was doing, I would probably suggest that they have the child for just weekends, once a weekend, every week, and that you kind of share the responsibility of the slightly older child. But yeah, I would encourage them to go and get a bigger place. Either get a place for themselves by themselves, or get a place with Lucy. I think the option with Lucy does make more sense, because then there'll be two other carers plus three other children, so there'll be quite a lot of people basically around. If Sophie was in that kind of environment, there would be Lucy's family of three kids, and her family of two kids. So there'll be quite a lot of people living in the house. But social services should be the ones that arrange this. Why? Because they're the ones that have got the kid. They're the ones that are refusing to give the kid over. And I believe they're doing this to try and make money, rather than to come up with actually solutions of getting kids out of foster care. But when it comes to housing, um, I think it's incredibly unfair that some people get free housing, and just because they don't have a job, um, and others are forced. Part of your serotonin comes from being forced to work. You get serotonin when you feel you're doing something useful, when you have a purpose in life, when you are learning skills, when you're out and going jobs. And okay, if you've got a child under the age of 5, then I think it's reasonable. If you're a single mum and you've got a child under the age of 5, you can't work because you need to look after your child. Um, but once they get to a certain age, they go to school. You can get a job, um, and okay, it might not be a great job, but it's incredibly unfair how some people can get a 4-bedroomed house and pay nothing, and some people, and to think that would have been the arrangement. They all get a big house together. Sophie pays. They all pay nothing because it's all paid for by the government, and then um, how many people are getting free housing just because they don't have a job? And by setting up this, you're saying, well, they'll never get a job. Why? Because they'll never want to make £20,000 a year, only to pay £4,000 of taxes, only to just about cover £16,000. That would get you a studio flat. So the only way you can get a 4-bedroom house, in London, or it's kind of close to London, but you'll be paying an absolute fortune for that. You need 24,000 just to cover the rent, and it's just how can flats be so much? If the average salary is £24,000 a year, why is the average rent 24,000 for a decent sized place? Why is that £24,000 a year? um, because that's only going to force people onto benefits, and if the only way they're going to get benefits is by not working and just getting as much benefit as they can, it's a completely unfair system. And I don't want to believe that it's real. I don't know that many cases of people who are getting free housing, because I don't know that many people, and the people that can afford a £50 massage are not people that are struggling with rent, or they might be people that are struggling with rent, but they're people that are paying rent. I don't I don't believe many of my, I don't believe I've seen many people that are getting free accommodation. So I don't know much about how the free accommodation works, but I know that it can easily be taken advantage of, and it's going to encourage people not to work. Why would you work and have to make 20,000 a year just to pay 4,000 in tax, only to just about afford a studio flat, when you can just say, actually, I just want to live off housing benefit and stuff. I just